respects to the original and custodians of this land that we speak and meet on. I'd like to take you to my parents' record collection because at a very, very young age I was able to play my parents' records on their stereo. And this album was sandwiched between two audience activations. The first one being the quadraphonic soundtrack to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, where I would be able to sit down in the middle of the four speakers and hear the cash registers of money go off. The second album that this album cover was sandwiched between was the original soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar, where I reenacted the entire soundtrack with my sister's dolls. And yes, theatre was for me. This album is another audience activation. Whilst it contains fantastic music, it is also an invitation to draw on it, connect 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and make a picture of Neil Diamond. Whilst, however, my mum and dad's record was already completed, I always dreamt of drawing wiggly lines or jagged lines between the dots. I'd like to fast forward to 2010. This project, I'm Still Here, Parts 1 to 5, originated from an artist who identified himself with a disability from Murray Bridge. He was an outsider artist. He felt outside of the community. So over a series of discussions, he wanted to collaborate with professional artists. So what we did is we got him over 5 weeks to collaborate with 4 artists, a performer, a director, a visual artist and a dancer, and a sound artist in there as well at times. And we put them in a shop front in Murray Bridge. And over 5 weeks, in full view of the community, made the work. They were audience activating. They were allowing their work to be seen by passers-by. They interacted with the community over those 5 weeks, making a series of works, which ended up being video and photographic works. And in the end, sort of placed him at the centre of his own community. Also in 2010, there was a work that that's been touring around the place from Port Augusta. Cacophony is a work for 12 cars and 12 CDs. The work is made by Matthew Timmis from Port Augusta, and it's gone from Port Augusta to Port Adelaide, Tasmania, and in Castlemaine. And again, it's an audience activation where the audience is actually the people in the cars, not necessarily expecting what to hear. It's the 12 CDs are totally synced up together, so that when you place the 12 cars in a huge space, it's like the quadraphonic Pink Floyd soundtrack. And the best ownership of this was actually in Castlemaine, where the Hot Rod Club, afterwards, one of the members came out of the car and went, "Did you get it?" At which point I went, "Yeah, we got it." I'd like to take a detour. I went through a governor's leadership course last year, and there was a lot of discussion about leadership and what leadership was, and I became sort of enamoured with this quote, that adaptive leadership is specifically about change that enables the capacity to thrive. New environments and new dreams demand new strategies and abilities, as well as the leadership to mobilise them. As in evolution, these new combinations and variations help organisations, and I think individuals as well, thrive under challenging circumstances rather than perish, regress or contract. Leadership then must wrestle with normative questions of value, purpose and process. And throughout the year, whilst I understood that a lot of things were connected, I didn't realise just how complex things were. And I suppose that this is just a reminder for me and a whole series of organisations that I deal with, that, you know, nothing's always the same, and you can't keep things all the same. But it's also about not reinventing the wheel, but creating a space where things can be tested at a time, and just testing those little things at a time and seeing if they work, and failing sometimes. I'd like to go back to another work that was happening in 2010. This is we're currently in the third creative development. Rising Damp is a company from Mount Gambier, a very, very small company that deals usually with youth theatre. But If There Was Colour Darker Than Black is a work that will premiere at the National Regional Arts Conference next year. The work is a bus trip around a country town whilst you're trying to find a young lad who is slowly disappearing. But you can interact with him via text messages and Facebook whilst you're on the bus. Meanwhile, you visit the areas that he's inhabited and you get to know a lot about him whilst he's disappearing. It's again an audience activation. We love the idea that you can interact with him online but never see him. You can go to his places but never see him. His Facebook will be open a month before, so you can interact with him and get to know him. And also we've been working through the work by using young people in regional communities as our outside eye. Another audience activation. I'd like to take another detour. Last year, whilst I was on the leadership course, the word resilience kept coming up, and I hate that word. But I chose it for the theme for the National Regional Arts Conference because I want to get underneath it. The actual definition of resilience is to bounce back from where you originally came from, or bounce back to original form. That pertains to a piece of plastic. But for human beings, there is actually a sense of change in there, and I actually think that change is connected to art and creativity. So the next thing that I've been trying to wrestle with is resilience, and this is the sort of the best quote that I've come up with so far, that adaptive resilience is the capacity to remain productive and true to core purpose and identity whilst absorbing disturbance and adapting with integrity in response to changing circumstances. And it sort of relates to the adaptive leadership thing as well. Earlier last year, I was on a beautiful experience called En Route, by One Step at a Time Like This. It's a journey with headphones and phones through your own capital city, and I managed to see Adelaide in a totally different light. At the end of that experience, I was in a cafe. He took me to a cafe and I ended up chatting to Claire from One Step at a Time Like This. And we sort of got to talking to what I was doing, and she said, I think you should meet Jude Anderson from Punctum. So I tracked her down. And we're now collaborating at the moment to look at live art and look at installation and performance as a way of creating, as a way of audience activations, I suppose. Punctum is a dynamic organisation. It's small, it can be quite responsive. Country Arts SA is a foundation organisation. We own theatres, and we tour to them, and we tour to art galleries. And I like to work in the cracks, but to be between them. So the collaboration is really quite perfect in a way. We got to talking a lot over the last 6 months, etc., and we've come up with this sort of cultural leadership program that we'll be developing over the next 12 months that puts the artist at the centre of their community. And we've been talking a lot about civic engagement, and we're very interested in that our sense of place equals events over time, and that is the space that artists work in. And if we take that into account, then all these audience activations can happen at any part at any time, but at the same time, our sense of place is formed. The next thing that I'm fascinated in, that's sort of being connected to all of this, is the NBN. Just like the railways 100 years ago, this infrastructure is going to radically change regional communities and actually place the artist in regional centres at a really interesting juncture to be able to pump out work from their own area as opposed to receive work all the time. And I'm really interested in seeing what audience activations can arise from this piece of infrastructure. And also as you start looking into the place and the space of people and regional communities. So I suppose what I'm trying to do is create a roadmap. These are all disparate points, and I'm trying to make my own roadmap through regional communities and with regional artists and regional audiences. I suppose what I'm trying to do is join the dots. Let Simon Crane keeps banging on about. But maybe we're just trying to make our own pictures of New Diamond.